The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 62.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Today we're discussing The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 6, The Tragedy. Joining me today on the panel are, first up this evening is Andrew Hermes.
Hey Father, how's it going?
Pretty well, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Second up this evening is Mike Creevy.
Hello.
Hello. Figured you'd say hello there.
I was going to say chut, but that's not. there's no Watto in this episode. So.
And third and finally this evening is Thomas Sanjurjo.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So before we jump into the episode, first of all, I have just a bit of kind of shameless self-promotion, but I've already shared it with the podcast crew. But if you guys are paying attention and are subscribed to the Star Wars Insider magazine, you might see a familiar face because I was interviewed back in February and it finally debuted in issue number 199, which is actually hitting the bookstores December 16th. So I'm in part of their fan spotlight sort of section in the back of the magazine, so I've been kind of geeking out about that quite a bit the last 24 hours or so.
Deservedly so.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally an awesome St. Nicholas present, so to speak. Definitely check that out if you're at all interested. It should be out in just a week or so. Also, before we jump into the episode, there is a correction that we needed to say from a previous episode. Angela had misspoken, and she had called Diana Lee Inosanto Bruce Lee's sparring partner. And in fact, she meant to say that her sparring partner was her father, Dan, who was a martial arts master. But it is interesting to note that Bruce Lee was Dan's instructor. So there's still the connection there. But just Angela wanted us to make sure that we corrected that for her. And now let's jump into the tragedy.
Oh, such a great episode to have such a horrible title.
Well, what a way to set up that title. I mean, it was such a beautiful, cute scene between, Din and Grogu.
So
and
manipulative.
Then opening credits, the tragedy. Come on.
I literally, I was watching it. Now this time I'll have you guys know I didn't. I slept on my normal time, and I watched it when I got up. And as soon as it pops up on the screen, I literally was like, "No!" out loud. I'm like, did I wake somebody up? It's just like, don't call it that.
I have to say, though, I mean, since this is episode 6 out of 8, this is sort of the low point before the heroes kind of take back. At least that's kind of how I'm optimistically looking at hopefully the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, except that, they know they've got a season 3 in the bag now. So,
right.
Right. You can take all sorts of liberties at this point.
Right.
I was honestly, I was kind of wondering, I mean, they're not going to kill off Baby Yoda Grogu. That's not going to fly, but I was wondering a little bit if going into it at that moment, I was wondering, is it going to be are we going to see a flashback? Are they going to fill in what happened to him at the temple or that kind of thing? I was wondering if it was a past tense thing.
Yeah, I had the same feeling going in. I was like, sure. That's what they're going to do. That's exactly what they're going to do. It has to be what they're... No.
Yeah. So for being the shortest episode so far of the season, this was quite packed. I imagine there's absolutely nothing else to talk about. No other awesome characters that may have showed up to, we should just quit talking now. What'd you guys think of Boba Fett?
Like, finally, everyone knows this about Boba Fett. It's like there's like this legend, this sort of like mythology surrounding Boba Fett. If you just look at him, on a surface level in the movies, he's pretty lame. I mean, to most people, but he's kind of garnered this sort of like infamy through the fandom and through the Star Wars lore and mythos, and finally they're delivering on it, in live action. And for someone who I always thought it was, I don't know, for lack of a better word, cute, that Boba Fett was such a loved character. But, for me, I didn't care for him that much. Now I'm like, okay, this is, for someone who is like, if you're just watching the movies, this guy's a total villain or anti-hero at best, and like horrible way to die, when we thought he was dead. And then for him to come back and obviously confirming that he was the guy that grabbed Fennec in season 1, and for him to be following Mando this whole time, and I know we'll get into all the action and the fight scenes and stuff. I mean, now we can finally say, if anyone was not on the Boba Fett train, I think a lot of them, a lot of people hopped on, including me.
Now,
yeah.
Well, and I think too, they kept true to the character that they had developed in the Legends series, which was this kind of smart talking, really lucky bounty hunter that. He wasn't necessarily the best, but he was always in the right place at the right time. And so that last bit with him when he shoots the rocket off and hits the one ship that knocks down the other ship, and Din comes up and says, nice shot. And he's like, well, I was aiming for the other one. That is absolutely the Boba Fett that I love and that I knew from the comics and all the expanded universe stuff that came out. So I was very glad that they didn't make him so awesome that he couldn't laugh at himself,
Well, and I just think too, it was in a weird way, and I haven't heard anyone else bring this up yet, and it just popped in my head last night. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone who's a huge Boba Fett fan. And in fact, as I'm watching this episode, knowing he's going to watch it later in the day, I'm thinking to myself, like, this, because I'm loving it as I'm watching it. And I'm thinking he will feel when he's watching this episode like I think I will feel watching the Obi-Wan series. There's this kind of seeing this favorite character with this new sort of, trajectory. And, but I said to him, funny enough, what it made me think of right away, like right after that fight scene, was in a way, it almost like makes Han's character even more authentic in Return of the Jedi, like just how ridiculously lucky Han is, because it was always a little bit of like, well, Boba Fett, where? And he spins around and like accidentally hits the jetpack, and that's supposedly the end of Boba Fett. And it's just like, I love this idea of like the idea of Han Solo being up against this guy. Like Han doesn't stand it's like we didn't even know how much of a chance he didn't stand.
Right.
So I feel like I really want to go back. I haven't had a chance yet to go back and watch the Boba Fett scenes, in Empire and in Return of the Jedi, and just really like soak that up. It'll be pretty fun, I bet now.
What I love about this episode, and actually it's kind of the Mandalorian in general, is how much they're pulling from the Legends universe. So this episode also pulled from that, and especially in regards to Jango Fett's backstory, which was really cool, and we'll get into that when we get to that point. But there Tython itself is a Legends universe, is where it started out, and I'm not as familiar with it, but I know it was, I think, supposedly the site of the original Jedi Temple.
Right.
But I haven't delved too much into that, but I love how they're pulling from the Legends universe, and they're at least with Jango and stuff, it's very much you can spackle it into the Legends universe and it works. They're not contradicting things, and so it's really cool to be able to do that, and to see and of course to see Tamara Morrison back as Boba Fett was just fantastic. I don't think I was expecting it. I think I'd sort of written him off in the first episode as, okay, that was his moment to say, yes, I'm here. And then we've had, Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, and I almost wasn't expecting Boba Fett at all to come back this season.
Yep.
Well, I just love it. It's all coming together. It's all coming together. He goes back, at the end of the episode, he goes back to Kara, and it's just like with the end of season 1 when they bring all the really cool characters back. Yes, we're going to do that again.
Well, and then, they're pulling back from season 1. I think we're going to see Bill Burr back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they specifically asked Bill Burr a few weeks ago or a few months ago, like, are you in season 2? And he, of course, he didn't even hint at it. He was like, no, they haven't contacted. It just totally blew it off. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I guess in that line of work, you have to be good at lying.
Yeah. That's what they do, right? That's their profession. It's kind of like putting on a face and making people believe something that isn't really there.
Not to get too far, but that's like, years ago when Joaquin Phoenix had that whole thing of how he was retiring from acting and becoming a rapper. And like, it was, he's an actor. Like he played that role for like months and was on talk shows and stuff. It was so brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Ewan McGregor has had to lie for what, like 10 years or whatever about an Obi-Wan series.
Oh my gosh.
I think he's still lying about it.
He just grins, he's like, oh, I don't know, I'd love to play that role again.
Soon. Okay, well let's jump into the kind of the recap here. And yeah, you guys kind of mentioned this, that the whole episode starts off with this adorable father-son sort of interaction between Din and Grogu. I imagine
and he's saying his name, he's like playing around and like giggling. And...
Yeah, all three of you probably have had exactly the same kind of experiences with your kids.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Especially once they learn their name and they can respond to it. Like you say it and they look at you like, yes, it works. Right.
Yeah, she's buying it. Again. Well, it was so like, like tugging on the heartstrings. Like I felt it coming. I didn't know what the title was going to be like. But it was just like sitting there and it's just so like I'm sitting there like this is over the top. And he's like, oh, you have to go with them, buddy, and you want to learn more of that Jedi stuff, right? I can't train you. I'm just like, oh, come on. Like, this is not going well. Your ship's being tracked. Like you just know something's going to go wrong.
Well, and you could almost, you could tell that Din was sort of rationalizing it to himself, that he was trying to psych himself up to knowing he was going to have to give up Grogu.
Yeah, there was a mention of the Call of the Wild in my house, that scene where he has to make the dog go back, the wolf go back to the wild. It's like, he's like, get out of here, and throwing stones at him and everything.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know how that's going to go over with baby Grogu here. That's not going to be a good scene at all.
And he already had to do that, like that beautiful scene at the end of the Ahsoka episode, like kind of holding them and all that, thinking that was going to be it. So this is like even worse.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think they're going to end up going down that road. I think they're trying to be real with the fact that Din recognizes that he would have to if this is kind of where it's going. But I think from just a general plot, I don't think Jon Favreau is going to do that to us. Do you disagree, Thomas?
I don't know. This is the Mandalorian, right? And I know they couldn't like slap the title The Mandalorian and Child on it at the beginning. And I know they've been playing with the lone wolf and cub thing a lot. But one of the real strengths of this show is that they're able to push Din out so far into the story, grab a whole bunch of characters, and then haul them all back in together for a story. Now, I think that the ultimate end game, all through the show, that the two of them are going to be together. But I think at the end, they have to be split up. Like, you can't have them end up together. So their story, whenever the story of The Mandalorian ends, I think it's going to be a parting of ways of these two. Because it doesn't make sense for Din to like keep him when he's such a valuable resource to restarting the Jedi, to that the whole next segment of what happens with the Jedi, because he's going to be around for 900 years, and to say he's just going to lose his force powers and be around 900 years, that's, I don't know. It makes the character very difficult it makes the decision to leave him with Din very difficult to agree with.
I would love to see Din in the quote old folks home, oddly enough, that Obi-Wan mentioned in episode 2. I just thought of this. Visited by little Grogu when Grogu is as if he's 5 years old, right? Because it's like, how long does this lifespan thing work? Like, geez.
Well, and we don't even know when like when he's going to get the ability to talk and anything, like, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
And how he's going to talk.
Right.
Was that something that was innate to Yoda?
Backwards?
Or
that'd be so funny if Yoda just was really terrible at like grammar. Like nobody else talks like that.
Thomas, I get a feeling that you might be right, but maybe they'll do a spin-off series starring Grogu.
The Grogu Show.
Yeah, the Grogu Show. The Adventures of Grogu. Okay, enough of that. We go back to Tython finally. And again, like this was another thing that I was excited about. There was no random quest that happens before Tython. Tython is just immediately there. And
I didn't expect that.
Right. Some have pointed out that if you look on the map when he finds Tython, it sort of shows it in the Outer Rim where he is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in the Legends universe, and I think in canon, in Dr. Aphra, the comic series, Tython is in the inner core.
Yeah.
So...
And it didn't look that I looked up some pictures because I wasn't familiar with it, and I wanted to ask you guys if anyone knows, because it looked different from what I had seen, and the first temple thing, I was like, I thought that was Octo, but I don't know. That doesn't really matter for me, I guess, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, so I think in the Legends universe, the first Jedi Temple was on Tython. I'm not sure if that's the same in canon. Yeah, so I don't know if that's something that they're going to address, or if it just, I don't know, it was convenient for them to kind of put it out there.
Well, because then they talked a little bit about being in the Outer Rim in this whole segment too, right? And you would think that if Moff Gideon was going to go all the way into the deep core and then back out to the Outer Rim with him, that would be really bizarre. So,
and probably dangerous for him, because that's where the New Republic actually is established. And
so it seems like they are trying to push Tython out to the Outer Rim.
I also saw someone suggest that maybe Tython wasn't the name of the planet, but rather a name that meant home. And so maybe it could refer to, I don't know, two or multiple places, but that also doesn't really make sense either. So yeah, because I think Ahsoka was pretty clear, like, go to the planet Tython.
Yeah. Right?
So I don't know, that might just be a continuity error that we just sort of overlook, and I'm sort of happy to overlook.
No, because this is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau we're talking about. They don't make continuity errors. They make decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pablo Hidalgo would have their head. I did figure out, though, well, okay, not officially, but this totally looked like my backyard. The planet, like the rock formations and everything looks like,
it
places in the Rocky Mountains.
It reminded me a little bit of some of the areas out near the Badlands, or like Mount Rushmore and stuff. Yep. Yeah, because
like the plant life and the rock formations. Yeah, it was like, I could just go up on Laramie Range and like find a similar looking place. So
you just need a smooth circular stone and some large pillars, and you can start your own first Jedi temple, right?
I did love the sort of like Jedi Stonehenge thing.
Yes. Yeah, well, they even referred to it as a henge. So
I didn't catch that. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep. Not Stonehenge, but a henge. Yeah, so they get to Tython, and we see the henge where the scene stone is, and Din can't land there because there's not enough room, so he has to jetpack up to the summit with Grogu, which was fun.
We're gonna have to ride the rest of the way with the windows down. Best line. Yes.
I love to see as he zooms past and you hear Grogu just a little like, wee again. He just loves it.
Yep. So he gets him up there, places Grogu on the scene stone, and then totally goes into like dad problem solve mode because nothing was happening, which was
like 2 seconds.
Awesome. Yeah. He's like looking for a control switch to turn it on, when really this is all a mystical thing, not a mechanical thing. And Grogu's just playing with a little butterfly, and things are just kind of not moving.
But I'll tell you, it's just like a kid to wait until the least opportune moment to figure it out, and then they're stuck doing it. It's like, man, seriously.
I was dying. His little posture.
Yeah.
Just sitting there like his little, like the little hands up like that.
Meditating.
Really into it.
Yeah. Well, and that begs the question to like, I mean, and we don't know what he experienced, and maybe we'll find out, but I mean, I'm kind of like with Din, like what was he seeing, or who was seeing him? What was we see that kind of Force emanation kind of thing going on, but no clue as to what that was actually like.
I feel like that's going to be your season, or our season 2 sort of cliffhanger thing. I don't know. That's my guess, because we got to have some action sequence here. But I don't know. I'm kind of imagining like an end of episode, whatever would be 16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jedi boots. Who I don't know how much they'll reveal, but I
somebody
think,
walking up to the hinge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that.
I think he reached somebody. I don't think they do it otherwise, but I don't know if they're going to tell us. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for this kind of a story, somebody had to have heard that call, and we're going to see
for a while.
Yeah, yeah. But of course, at the most inopportune time, then Slave One appears in the sky and lands nearby, which is also
I was
awesome.
chilling.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Like I said, I wasn't expecting Slave One. I was expecting that to be the Empire. And then my first thought was, oh boy, did Moff Gideon hire Boba Fett to track him down?
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully that wasn't the case. But that's Slave One. That's the same ship that's in the original trilogy, and it's the same ship from episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
So super, super cool there. Din, of course, tries to get Grogu out of this mystical energy field, but is unable to, and it just kind of knocks him back. And so he goes down to try to give him time by encountering whoever came out of Slave One. And we all, of course, know that that's Boba Fett himself. And he encounters Boba Fett. He kind of gets shot at, and they have this conversation where Boba Fett is telling Din that he's after the armor, not after the child like Din thought, and he's not after Din's armor, but he had to relate that he's after his armor that was that Cobb Vanth had and that Din had taken from him on Tatooine. And then we get the awesome line where Din asks him if he's a Mandalorian, and Boba Fett just says, "I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy, like my father before me." So 2 callbacks there. One from Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. And then, of course, Jango Fett himself. I'm just a simple man making my way through the universe, I think is what Jango says.
He's narrowed it down a little bit.
Right.
I thought it was really interesting here that he's asking for his armor back from Din rather than taking it. And he waited until a Mandalorian had it to ask for it back, because Cobb Vanth had it and he could have taken it from Cobb Vanth easily. Like you watch the scene and you see there's no way Cobb Vanth could have stopped him. Yeah. But he's waiting to like there's an honor system in getting it back, and that to me was that was an intense moment. It was really cool, which we see kind of play out as the things progress. But it was neat to see that he didn't go and take it back. He wanted it back the right way.
Yeah. Or thinking about it now, or he realized like, oh, well, Cobb Vanth is putting it to good use. He's protecting the town and he found his opportunity. Like you said, once Din took it, and he said he's been tracking him, so he still maybe waited. He's like, maybe he realized like, okay, this guy's not going to use his armor, so this is my chance to take it.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple other theories that I had read up to. One of them was in line with what you were saying, Andrew, that one suggested that perhaps Cobb Vanth is actually the one who maybe helped Boba Fett heal and from the Sarlacc pit, and then like perhaps he traded his armor in return for the help.
Okay. That would make sense with the honor system. Yeah.
In that sense, then Boba wouldn't have taken or tried to take the armor from Cobb. The other theory that I had read up on was that someone suggested that maybe the injuries that he received from the Sarlacc pit just made him unable to try to get the armor back from Cobb. And then by the time that Din had taken it, he had finally kind of gotten to a point where he could have taken it back. Either way, Thomas, that doesn't negate what you were saying about the fact that he comes to Din and asks for the armor. He doesn't just take it. So
the only thing I want to ask, and I'm assuming people listening to this have seen it, but I'll just save for later. Quasi spoiler, I won't mention, but I do wonder, why didn't he just take it? Why didn't he acquire it the way he acquires it later? Now,
right?
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah.
That just hit me because it was funny. Because of course, I've heard other shows that were pointing this out too, where it's like, what is with Din just leaving the door open?
Right.
Seriously.
Like my mom used to make me my mom locks her car in the garage.
Yep.
Like that's why, like we live in a nice neighborhood and you're growing up and it's like just course of habit. Like, dude, shut the door.
And then if you come to Wyoming,
spiders, you've got grief cargo. You like everybody, like, come on.
In Wyoming, there are so many people that like will, pull up in front of the post office, leave their vehicle running, go in and get their mail, come back out and get in their vehicle and leave. And it's like not a problem.
Yeah.
I'm on the other end where if I'm home in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, I lock the vehicle. And even though there's, no chance that anything would happen, but Din just doesn't have that same sense of security there.
He's got one set of possessions in the world that he cares about. It's his armor. That's it.
Well, that's the other thing is it's like when we've been talking about the Razor Crest, like it's not just his, like we were saying, it's kind of like his car, before, but I'm like, it's also his home. It's basically a space RV.
Yeah.
He lives in the thing. It's like, so it's like not locking your car and your house at the same time in a hostile environment. Like, like you don't know if there's bears. Like, what is there? You have no idea. Spiders again, but
yeah, let's not go back to that plan.
No, I'm sure they won't. They exhausted themselves on that one, I'm sure.
So it was interesting too. The next question that Din asks Boba Fett is, "Did you take the creed?" Because he's asking, he's trying to figure out if Boba is authentically a Mandalorian, and he asked if he took the creed. And I thought, I mean, that's such an interesting question. Of course, he's referring to the Mandalorian creed, but there's a Catholic connection there too, because it's totally, that's how, especially how the early Christians identified one another, was whether or not they could profess the same creed. And it's echoed in the fact that we profess the creed every Sunday at Mass, and we all profess it together and say the same thing and believe the same thing. But in the early church, it was like, you're Christian if you recite the same creed as I do. And so that's essentially what Din is trying to get with Boba Fett, is whether or not he has taken that same creed that Din did.
Well, yeah, and not only not the Mandalorian creed, but as he says, he's like, I allegiance to no one, like he's like, no creed, but like that is his creed. But I wonder, like, do we know what the creed is? Because he's mentioned that a bunch of times, and that's interesting to wonder about. I wonder, because it's like we saw that great interaction with Bo-Katan. And the whole like introduction, at least, of this whole idea of like, well, I might have to expand my understanding a little bit here of what a Mandalorian is, but he still seems like he's a child of the Watch still, like he hasn't taken his helmet off,
But I think this also points out to him another reason why his maybe closed-minded sense of who a Mandalorian is a bit too narrow.
Yeah,
because even by the end of this one, he accepts him, Boba Fett, as a Mandalorian. And I don't think we've ever gotten a full creed. We've sort of just gotten bits and pieces, like the armorer saying, things like, by I forget what she said, but when he brings Grogu by creed, he has to go take it back to its kind. And so we sort of get like little hints on what's in the creed, but we don't get a codified list of what's in it. Either way, Boba Fett is of course trying to reiterate that the armor is truly his, and that it's rightfully his, and mentions that it was his father's and that now it's his. And he reveals that he has a sharpshooter on the ridge that would prevent Din from killing Boba, which Din was kind of threatening to do. And we get the crazy cool reveal that Fennec is still alive. What do you guys think of that particular reveal?
I like her being around. She's an awesome character.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Fantastic. And she really shows up in this episode too. So
yeah. No, that was cool. And then her revealing like how she was staying alive was pretty cool, if not graphic, but that was pretty cool.
I liked Boba Fett's line there though about, sometimes basically says we're both left for dead. I like the way he says Tatooine though, by the way, too. There's just something different about it. But the what did he say? Something like sometimes fortune smiles on the wretched.
Yep.
Yeah. So he doesn't, he doesn't really seem to, it's not like he's holding himself up on some pedestal. It really is just like, yeah, I'm a problematic person, you know, and it's interesting because, you know, friend of the show, Daniel Logan, of course, who played him as the kid, you know, like he's kind of funny in episode 2, you know, and then if I'm right, I think he do the voice then too for the character in the animated series. I think they brought him to do. So, you know, you have that development of that character, and it had a lot of fun stuff, but it was like, you know, he was kind of like an angsty teenager, you know, kind of character. So to kind of leap now to right, you know, and then in the, if you keep the character going in the original trilogy, again, like he doesn't really do much but look cool, you know. And I think he has like, there's a YouTube video, isn't there, where they do a compilation. I think it's like 3 or 4 minutes or something total. Like it's not a lot of screen time. So so this, I think this is really maybe, again, it's such a short episode that he isn't even in for like about 10 minutes, you know, or 8 minutes, whatever it is. Tremendous, I feel like, character development.
Much more dialogue than he ever got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It somehow just works so well, I feel like.
And still really quiet, but much more dialogue than he ever got in the movies before. So I think we've expanded the canon of Boba Fett by like 3 times the lines that he's ever had.
And half that dialogue is spent making sure everyone knows that Jango Fett was his father.
Right?
You almost expect him to mug the camera, look right at you and be like, oh, I also played in a movie 18 years ago. I'm the spitting image of my father. Like, there's a reason for that.
Right? I do love his accent.
Yeah.
Yes. So like he's great. This was also cool because this connected with chapter 5, The Gunslinger, when I think we speculated that it could have been Boba Fett, who at the very end of the episode, we saw you saw someone approach Fennec's body. And I think we speculated that with the spurs, we thought it might be Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So this was that payoff, which was really cool to see as well. So one of the other things that we learned in that little conversation is that Boba reveals that the armor was given to Jango by the Mandalorians themselves. And he offers Din a deal that he promises safety for him and the child if he gets his armor back.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Father, but what I think, because we were talking about this a few weeks ago, speculating, is this not the first sort of official canon, at least like show or movie confirmation that it is Jango's armor that he then modified? I don't know that they specifically ever pointed that out.
He just repainted it. But I don't know if it's ever been as clear and explicit.
So that was cool for continuity.
And it points out that actually that's kind of like Din. I mean, there's actually some, and we'll find out more later, but there's a lot of parallels between Din and Jango, I guess, specifically, and then I guess through Jango Boba.
Well, and their armor looks very similar too, right? The armor that Din wears and that Jango wore is very similar.
And I wonder now, does that then mean that the parallel is more between Din and Jango and then between Boba and Grogu?
Ooh.
Oh.
I mean,
Boba is the child of Jango.
That's true.
Boba's armor's green. Grogu's green.
All right.
Really off the deep end.
Connecting dots here.
No, but I think there was a lot in here that tells us about why Din, as a foundling, might have a different set of standards for what a Mandalorian is. And that I hope they explore that a little more. I hope they go a little bit deeper into the fact that Din is very similar to Jango in that regard. That they play up that. I trust that they probably will, because they've made that connection now. I think they're probably going to go a little bit deeper with that. But it also explains why, as a foundling, maybe that's what an expectation of a foundling is. And that the rest of the Mandalorians don't have to do this kind of thing anymore, because they've got a populated, planet. But the offshoot cult kind of went back to this older version of the Mandalorian, where they would find people in battle and, take the children of the people that they killed and then train them as Mandalorians. And that's a very, that's one of those very brutal conquest kind of things where you go in and you kill the parents, you take the children, you raise them as you, and they go out and fight the same people that they used to be a part of.
That's what they did with Finn.
Right. And it's interesting to kind of take that, push that agenda for conquerors and to remember that he's part of this sect, this cult that was very bent on that old way of doing things.
So I was going to save this conversation for later, but I think it might be appropriate to bring it up here. And of course, because this relates to Jango's backstory, and I don't know. So they're pulling from legends at near the end of the episode when Boba Fett shows Din his chain code. There's someone has already translated all of those characters, which is really cool. So
yes,
the translated characters that are able to be read say basically the following. I'll quote: "Foundling," so referring to Jango, "took into blank the year the blank Concord Dawn," which is in the Legends universe the name of the planet where Jango was born and where his family lived. Mentor Jast, which is most likely a reference to, again, the Legends character of Jaster Muriel, who was a Mandalorian who rescued Jango. So who would have been his mentor and his father figure? Father Fett is also then mentioned, a reference to Jango. Unfortunately, not a reference to me, but I think that's pretty cool. That
it's in there.
It's in there. It's canon.
It's canon.
And then the final word that they're able to translate is Boba Fett. So, just kind of lost my train of thought there. What I was going to say was that in the Legends universe, there is a comic book called Star Wars Jango Fett Open Seasons, and I read it again today just to make sure that I was kind of up to date on what was going on. And actually, so this is the story of Jango Fett from when he was a kid. His family gets killed by Death Watch, and Vizsla, who was in Legends, and Jaster rescues him and raises him as a Mandalorian. And this kind of tells the story of how Count Dooku found him to be the clone template, essentially, from a Legends point of view. So it's not canon, just to be clear. However, there's obvious inspiration drawn from this. But what I was going to say was that in this comic series, Jango is brought into the group that's opposed to Death Watch versus Din, who is a child of the Watch.
Yeah.
So I don't, that's not at all clear in canon whether or not that's the same as true, but in the Legends universe, Jango he actually kills Vizsla by the end of it. So again, not canon, but Legends.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know if that's going to play a role at all, but as you were talking, the parallels there. But even though Din is a child of the Watch, Jango and then Boba by connection would not be a child of the Watch. Okay, now that I've got all my Legends geekiness out of my system, I got to find my spot again. The Empire shows up, of course, right at the inopportune time again.
Did those drop ships remind you guys a lot of the ones in Force Awakens?
I thought they were really very similar. Yeah,
really reminisced, like the First Order ones. I thought they really looked similar.
I haven't seen the Force Awakens recently enough to make that parallel, but it's likely. So the Empire shows up. Stormtroopers start spilling out of this transport. Din goes up to try to get Grogu, and of course he can't. Grogu's still in his trance. And then we have
it's like me getting Noelle away from Doc McStuffins or like, sweetie, we have to go, and he's just like glued to it, like, oh no.
And then we have the fight scenes, which are just really well done. Fennec is incredibly accurate. I was kind of blown away by her. We don't really get that sense of her in season 1, but in this episode she's deadly.
Yes, the bullet time jump shot and like falling down and shooting a stormtrooper as she's falling. Yes. I have to point out here, I thought it was hilarious. I finally caught this. Boba Fett is using a gaffy stick, right? And that was what was used to knock him off into the Sarlacc pit by Han, wasn't it? I think it was the same utensil. I'm gonna have to go back and look to make sure. But I think that's what he turns around and hits him with, is this, like, I think it's a weighted stick that looks almost the same as that. So,
I just got, like, with his sequences, it's like it's so Robert Rodriguez, first of all, in a lot of ways. But to me, it was like, I just felt like all these, like the brutality of it. It was like Braveheart, meets like 300, I mean, it was just so terrifying, especially remember the one clip where he's just walking slow and dragging it for a split. I was like, that's just a little mean, and like the shattered plastic and everything. It was just, oh my gosh, that was nuts.
Yeah, intense for sure.
That's what I said. Well, and because we talked so much before we started recording here, but that's what I said about my wife, just for the audience. Christine's watching it with me Friday night, and she's just like, he is really intense. And I was just like, yes, apparently so. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's all this fighting, and Fennec and Boba Fett are quite equal to the task. And the stormtroopers even try to set up this heavy repeating blaster. And I mean,
and the mortar, the guy launching mortars up at him and everything. Yeah. You get to see the stormtroopers finally do what stormtroopers are supposed to do, right? They'll just bowl out, put all the equipment up, and just lay down fire as much as they can. Yeah. And that's why it doesn't matter if they can hit or not. They're supposed to just shoot.
Right.
Well, and if you have enough stormtroopers, and if as the Empire you're not really concerned about the individual, you just throw as many stormtroopers as you can, and the ones that die are they die, and you just kind of keep going. Fennec also pushes this huge boulder down, and it knocks out the heavy blaster. And I thought of Indiana Jones on one level, and then bowling on another level.
Yes. The white pins.
I just don't know why that stormtrooper thought he could outrun the boulder. Just run to the side. That was
right. Why are you running downhill? Go sideways.
Oh man.
We get the little moment where Boba looks at the Razor Crest, and I think all of us, or at least I, suspected exactly what was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
And so the fighting, of course, continues. Din still can't retrieve Grogu. He's thrown back again, and instead of just staying up there and trying to pull him out, he finally decides to go back and help Boba and Fennec fight off the stormtroopers.
I did laugh a little bit about how, because I almost forgot about Din for a few minutes. Right. It's like Pedro shows up on set. They're like, okay, here's what we need you to do. This is the Boba Fett episode. Like, oh, cool. Okay, so you're going to lay down over there for 15 minutes. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I had
your kids, and you get shot, and then you're out for the round or whatever, and you're like, come on, I want to play too.
Yeah.
And of course, as soon as he leaves, the force field goes down, and Grogu's done with his little Jedi communique, or
again, the kid timing, doing. Man. Kid timing.
But at least he then just stays put because he falls aslead. Right. So at least he's not off running around causing other trouble. But
I will say my kids knew at that point that something was bad, because my 3-year-old, who was sitting in my lap for this episode, and this is an intense episode, right? So he's really into it. He's really into it. When the force field fell and Baby Yoda fell asleep, he stood up, and he was like really nervous about what was happening next. So he knew at that point that that was it.
Yep.
I was like, okay, buddy, just sit back down. We'll keep watching.
Well, Grogu at that point is the most vulnerable ever. Din is not near him. He's sleeping and completely exposed. So, but Din decides to help Fennec out, and we get to see the whistling birds in action again as he takes out some stormtroopers that are surrounding Fennec. And he offers Fennec a deal to leave, because he basically said that they're done with their business, and Fennec shows quite a bit of honor by saying, no, we had a deal, and that she's gonna help him and Grogu. And then, of course, in that moment, that's when Boba Fett arrives in his armor, which was fantastic.
Yes, to say the least. Yes. This is what we've been waiting for decades now.
Another opportunity to cosplay. I just his armor, and then with his leggings or whatever.
It
looked awesome.
I was wondering if he's going to maintain that, or if he'll modify it, once he has a chance to kind of, change and not be in combat or something. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, his attire that he had on did not at all hinder him whatsoever. Because Did
you guys get the impression? Because there was a lot of that discussion in the first episode about how it looked so goofy in one way or another on Cobb Vanth, but on purpose. I felt like this is like, it looks like it's his.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was great. We also noticed that he has these knee rockets or whatever, which are the first time I think we've ever seen that on live action. Which of course causes all the stormtroopers to finally retreat, which was exactly what we were all hoping for. And
then he spun the pistol. There's your little Wild West thing there.
And we get Boba Fett to take out the transport ships with his rocket launcher.
Yes.
Of course.
Well, he flips down the targeting computer, and yes. You get to see the whole thing.
Yeah,
the whole armor gets used.
Yeah.
And this was a visual callback to the Marshal with Cobb Vanth, who did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Also a callback to Iron Man.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. There was other callbacks to Iron Man in this episode.
I was going to say there's another one.
Yeah.
And then at that point, laser bolt streaks down from orbit and just obliterates the Razor Crest.
No.
I know there's a lot of people online upset that he's like, I just dropped $400 for that Hasbro. I'm like, I think the reason they made it so nice and so detailed is so that you can remember what it was when you see it on your shelf. I have a prediction, by the way, and I have no idea if this will be true, but I think you could see, sometime down the road, Grief Karga or someone, hooking up Mando with a new Razor Crest. Something like that. Little different, but enough of a callback. We'll see. Yeah. That was rough.
Yeah, this was the real tragedy. I think that's why this episode was called this. Is this ship went through so much this season. I mean, at one point, it was like just hanging by a thread, literally, and for it to just be parked, and taken out in one shot. Yeah, it's like, come on, like.
There was one year when I was in college, I was in 3 car accidents in 2 years where I was parked, and 2 of them were when it was actually turned off, where someone just hit my car, but no one blasted it into a million pieces.
Well, and then I mean, Din's invested a ton of credits into getting it fixed, and and all
the carbonite freezing stuff, it's his business.
Well, even with the first season, it was all taken apart in the first season, put back together.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the Jawas,
the Jawas took it all apart. So this ship is it's a tank, and for it to just get hit by one turbo laser and obliterated, not even destroyed. This thing just did not exist after.
It's almost. I mean, you could argue that it's a character. I mean, there are plot lines that are that just revolve around what shape this ship is in. It revolves around all of that, and for it to just go away in the second. Yeah, I mean, I was like, what is going on?
I loved it, and just the aesthetic of it was so cool too, just because of the feel of that old, almost like a World War II bomber kind of fuselage. It was such a cool. You're right, like a character. So, oh my gosh, I'm sitting there jaw dropped just on the couch, no.
Well, and Star Wars has a good reputation of I mean, ships are characters. I mean, the Millennium Falcon is totally a character, and Solo even kind of makes that more pronounced.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Return of the Jedi, they knock a disc off a satellite dish off the top of the thing. And you're like, oh no, you put a scratch on it. And it's like, no.
Well, by the same token, this goes very briefly back to when some of the ongoing discussion with episode 9 specifically, but the sequel trilogy, and it's just the stakes question, because I always say when I'm talking about it, I'm not saying I wanted Chewbacca to die or I wanted the Millennium Falcon to blow up, but this episode really I think hit me with the whole reminder of it, when the stakes are there, and it's really gone. It really, for the story, just really sinks it in.
It's good storytelling because
that's life.
That was one of the there was an article that I was reading that pointed out perhaps one of the issues why like Solo didn't do so well in the box office was just that there weren't those stakes. Han Solo's going to survive, and so whatever happens to him in the movie, you're not worried at all if he's going to come out alive, because he obviously does.
Well, and even in the prequels, like, you know where it's going, but you know what is going to happen to Anakin.
Yeah.
Like, and that is terrible. There's no getting away from that. So, yeah.
But with Din and Grogu, we have no idea what happens to them whatsoever. They're not referenced. They're not in the sequel trilogy. They're not anywhere. So, I mean, they could perish at the end of the season. I don't think they will, but the stakes are there, which I think it just has a more compelling story, which is helpful. And with the Imperial cruiser in orbit now, I mean, the stakes are getting raised very, very quickly. Din tries to get up to get Grogu before something bad happens, and we swap to Moff Gideon, who engages the Dark Troopers.
So nice.
Yeah. Well,
I was not expecting them to go full on Dark Forces with the troopers. That was awesome.
Had that little bit of a Vader, connection on the helmet.
It
and
looks
stuff
so
too.
cool.
I was very excited for that because I remember playing Dark Forces on our Windows 95 computer way back in the day.
Way back in the day.
So that this was like a homage to my to my childhood. But even that raises questions too, because when we saw a couple episodes ago with who's getting the blood infused Grogu, or the Grogu blood, probably not the Dark Troopers.
No, it could be, because I think there was some play on the Dark Troopers being dark, like Sith powered, and so there was some talk about them being metachlorian driven somehow. I'm gonna just throw the word out there because it didn't exist at the time, but that it would explain so much about what they meant, because there was the labs that they were built in were like genetics labs, so they had all these tests, had all these back to tanks and stuff. So what I'm thinking is that they build a genetic insert for the droid itself, so it's not actually just a droid, but it's a hybrid kind of thing.
Or what if we're just being misdirected here? Like, what if the Dark Troopers are nothing more than enhanced battle droids that are super effective, but the Grogu blood and the Force infusion sort of thing is maybe Moff Gideon wants that for himself.
That's what I'm
and he's
thinking.
testing it on other people
too, actually.
So because I mean, they did reference in the episode a couple episodes ago the Volunteer, that they didn't want to do that because it could kill him. I don't know how you kill a droid. But
right.
I don't know. I think we're going to get some more answers in the next two episodes, but it's not quite as direct as maybe as we thought it was a couple episodes ago.
But I will note, we see the Darksaber at the end of this episode, but we have not cared about the Darksaber at all this entire season, except for when Bo-Katan asked about it. That's it. That's like the only, as an audience, we're like, what Darksaber? Who cares?
Which that's such an interesting point, because that was the season finale of season one, and it was the big thing.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about the Darksaber until he pulled it out.
And he pulled it out so like nonchalantly. It's like, oh,
you ever seen one?
I've seen one of these? Yeah. Like, it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Do you guys think, by the way, that there's I don't know if I'm overreading this or not, but you could probably interpret it a couple different ways, but I don't know. There's just something about that interaction with him and Grogu there. I know we're getting there, but I just do you think Moff Gideon and him have a background? Because I don't know. Like it could just be, well, they found this kid and he's Force sensitive and they're trying to get the blood, but it's like, but how they find him? Like there's some thing, like, and we know Moff Gideon, like, he knew their names and everything. Like he's got all this knowledge, but there was almost like a familiarity, like a good to see you again kind of thing. Like you've gotten quite good with that. Like, I don't know. It might be nothing, but it's at least open, I think, to them having a little bit of a backstory too.
I think it totally implies that, because I mean, even like the fact that Grogu can't talk, Moff Gideon isn't at all concerned about that. He seems to already know that. And this is the first time we've ever seen them encounter each other.
Right.
So I think, we might get answers on that front too, maybe in the next season. That's next season.
That's I think Giancarlo Esposito himself had said that in season 3 and season 4 you're really gonna hear a lot of there's a season 4. Like that's what was my takeaway.
Yeah, right. He implied that
we gotta wait until season 4.
He implied that we'd see a lot more Gideon in season 3 and 4. So this is very likely. The Dark Troopers. This is where we get the other Iron Man reference.
Yeah,
the way that they flew down to the planet was totally Iron Man, which is I didn't mind it at all. I thought they looked really cool. And they of course land on the summit and immediately take Grogu and leave. They are efficient, whereas the stormtroopers are not.
Yeah, but as fast as they fly, they walk pretty slow. I mean, I guess that was just for the tension. It's like, well, Din's trying to get up the hill, they're walking towards the Grogu, and that was probably just more for a dramatic effect. I think if they had to, they could probably run pretty fast.
Did anybody else shout at the TV? Why did you not call your jetpack? Like, what?
Yes,
what are you doing?
Yes.
The jetpack is like sitting there. Why did you not call it to yourself and fly after them?
Well, as Inverse or one of the websites had that, I didn't read it, but there was an article about like, where's his jetpack?
Yeah, and we've already established that he can remote control it.
Right. It's like it's not like taking it off didn't matter, and that's what I told the kids. My kids at the beginning were like, "Oh no, he's going to be without his jetpack," and I'm like, "You think that matters?" Like, he's done this.
He did all of season 1 without a jetpack,
right?
Yeah.
That was one of our favorite scenes from earlier in the season, when the Marauders attack him and the guy runs off with it and he's just like,
yeah. So either way, the Dark Troopers succeed in capturing Grogu, and Boba Fett has already jumped back into Slave One and is tracking them. And rather than shoot at them or attempt to destroy them because of Grogu, he just kind of tracks them and it goes all the way up to the Imperial cruiser.
Quick question there. When he says, he comes through the clouds and he says, the Empire's back.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little confused about, well, not at first, but the second time I watched, I was confused because I'm like, what about the 2 transports loaded with stormtroopers you guys just fought for the last 20 minutes? Like, what?
I was like, why is Fennec like, Fennec's reaction was like, she was so like surprised. I'm like, you literally just slaughtered a bunch of stormtroopers.
It could be that it was the Imperial cruiser that he saw and not just.
Right. I think it was the cruiser itself. Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that has a bigger connection in the Empire at large than just maybe a couple troop transports that might be following some random warlord.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's something that Grief said in the first season. He said, the Empire's gone. All that's left is just warlords and whatever. Right. But, but this is more like official.
Well, those triangular ships, they're symbolic, man. It's like, that is the Empire. So
yeah.
I would agree. I think that seeing that you would go.
I think if Grogu wasn't on the ship, I think Boba could easily destroy that ship because we've seen those ships go down many times. There's nothing too special about them.
Well, if you watch my favorite movie, Slave One has those awesome sonic charges that could do some damage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is such an awesome scene.
So, anyways, back on the ground. They check out the damage from the Razor Crest, or the lack of anything from the Razor Crest. And he finds the little small knob that Grogu likes to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knew it was made out of Beskar?
Really
I know, right?
Yeah,
exactly. It was made out of Beskar.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the Beskar spear is the only other thing that survived the entire obliteration. And it was at that point that Boba Fett shows Din his chain code. And proves that, he was Jango was a foundling taken in by Mandalorians, and that Boba Fett has the lineage there, which directly makes the parallel between Din and Jango, and it retcons Jango's story. So
yes,
in the Clone Wars, Jango is referred to as just a common bounty hunter by Prime Minister Almec, and he doesn't even know how Jango acquired the armor. And this makes it clear that Jango was a foundling and that he was given the armor by Mandalorians. So he is just as much a Mandalorian as Din is, which in turn makes Boba Fett just as much a Mandalorian as Din is.
Which is interesting because, like Bo-Katan is perfectly, like she's as authentically Mandalorian as the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't even have any, qualms whatsoever about, like Din is a Mandalorian to her right away. But it makes you wonder about like maybe like a purist, ethnocentric kind of, group within the Mandalore, culture that might be like, no, if you're not, purebred, you can't be one. So that could be part of it too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was excited about this because this makes Jango's backstory.
He's a Mandalorian.
Yeah. We've been in doubt for years at this point, so this was very welcome. And Boba Fett at this point also makes it clear with Din that their deal is not quite over. So Boba and Fennec are going to help Din until the child is returned to him safely. So that is setting up the next 2 episodes.
Was anyone surprised by that? Like that he was so? I mean, yeah, because like again, if you just in the movies, he's just like this bounty hunter that's like a hired gun. You wouldn't think he has loyalty anywhere, but for him to say that and to stick to it, I mean, obviously, whatever the rumors of a Boba Fett spinoff show are around and have been around, and maybe we'll see why, how he's how he's adopted this new moral code. But yeah, that was I just fully expected him to just leave. He got his armor and he was going to take off with Fennec.
I would see perhaps maybe 2 possibilities there. One being that he recognizes the relationship between Din and Grogu and recognizes the foundling issue and wants to help and uses the deal as the excuse to, I want to see this through. It could also be that he is more opposed to the Empire and recognizes that if he also helps Din, that he would be kind of helping them against the Empire. I don't know if that one's as likely.
Yeah, because I wondered about that, because there's nothing on screen, at least, to suggest that he has some big qualms against the Empire. I mean, that's all he was doing was working for them and in The Empire Strikes Back.
But his reaction to the Empire's back sort of had a bit of, I don't know, fear or trepidation,
Right, he's I'd say now pretty officially in the non-Imperial camp.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Right. So I don't know. Either way, we get Boba Fett and Fennec in at least the next episode, which will be great.
Yeah.
Well, the reason he's against the Empire, though, right? Because no disintegrations. That's what it comes down to. They wouldn't let him disintegrate.
Deals off.
So we get the setup for the next episode. Slave 1 heads to Navarro, and Din meets up with Cara and inquires about Miggs Mayfield.
What?
Apparently he has some ability to be able to track Moff Gideon's light cruiser.
Yeah, that I don't know. Like, what is that based on, though?
Well, he had. I mean, he was all about. He flew for the Empire, right, or something like that.
Well, he was a sharpshooter.
Right. But he had experience on with a ship or something. I read something about this loosely where they tied it to why he would be maybe be someone who could find the ship. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he's coming back. So.
And I suspect they're going to make it clear why he can track them, right? Even if we at this point don't know. So that's exciting. That's coming, and then then the end of the episode ends with Moff Gideon encountering Grogu, and that whole scene, how it plays out, which is, I mean, another thing to point out about that was it got a bit dark. Grogu was choking and force pushing those stormtroopers. He didn't kill them, thankfully. I was very happy to see that they didn't die, but
he's defending himself, but he's forced
choking them.
He's terrified. And that's it goes back to what Ahsoka said. She saw fear in him, and that he's afraid of these guys and what they're capable of. And so you see kind of that dark side of the Force coming out in him.
And Gideon letting him go.
Exactly. When they set their guns to stun, he was like, no, let's see how this plays out. I think that's exactly what, like you guys are saying, like, oh, okay, maybe we can get this guy on our side. That was really interesting. And then he said something, I forgot what the line was, but I think it was almost like saying like, oh, when he pulled out the Darksaber, he even admitted that he he doesn't himself know how to use it. He's like, maybe maybe you know what like one day how to use one of these. So that, I think that also alludes to maybe like what you guys were saying earlier, that maybe he wants Grogu's blood for himself, so that he can be master with the Darksaber and use the Force to have the Force bend to his will.
Well, and I think they're just wanting to use Grogu for his blood. I don't know if they're trying to turn him to the dark side per se, because I think that would be too unpredictable. No, I don't think so either. But I think maybe at least that thought maybe occurred to him in that moment, and be like, oh well, maybe we don't have to. This doesn't have to be such a struggle going forward. Like maybe you could eventually we can get this guy to go towards the dark side, because he's loyal to Din. He's not going to.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but Moff Gideon's pride might make him think differently.
So that's where the episode ends. Grogu in shackles, and quite emotional all the way around.
Yes.
Do you guys think that Cara is going to join in or not? Because because she's like legit and official and everything, but by the same token, she's it's like. She owes the kid, and I mean, that's the thing that,
they imply that she's considering it because Grogu was taken.
Yeah. Once you mention the kid,
I think she's going to join in.
And I mean, basically, I can't at this point. I mean, this show can't seem to do anything that I don't love, so I wouldn't mind even this, but I do wonder if you're going to get, like how many is too many people? Like, you're going to basically have like the end of like Avengers Endgame kind of thing, where it's like, like Din and Bo-Katan and Ahsoka and like 50, and like Luke shows up, and it's like,
and one saying, you wanted more?
Yeah, and it's like the giant sandbox. But I'll put it this way: the people they've just hinted at least that they're assembling for the end of this season many of them aren't who I expected at all.
Right?
So and I get, like, I don't think Grief's coming along. I think he's pretty happy where he's at. Doing his thing. So
it's going to be an exciting next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
In fact, next week's going to be hard, because that's the penultimate episode. That's going to just leave us on some sort of drastic cliffhanger.
No, it's got to get dark. The darkness before the dawn, right?
Right.
Well, it's last year. It was Kuiil died, and Well, see that last year. That's when Grogu was captured.
Yep.
This time it happened 3 before the end. Like, come on. Oh my gosh. And then he got punched in the next one.
So. That's right. Oh my gosh.
I love how much crap Jason Sudeikis got on Twitter for that. And he had filmed it so long before. Like, then when it dropped, he wasn't tracking on, I guess, when it was released. He's like, "What is going on right now?" And like, oh yeah, I punched Baby Yoda. Yikes.
Any final thoughts on this episode before we wrap things up?
I love the relationship.
Seriously, yeah.
I love the relationship between Boba Fett and Fennec. This almost Han Solo Chewbacca, but if they were more anti-hero kind of thing going on, that was really cool. The way it played out, like they knew each other, they knew each other's moves, they knew how they were going to react to things. They had hand language that they could use with each other. So very well done that.
Well, and that brings up this question we don't have a firm answer, I don't think, on is exactly how much time has passed between season 1 and now, because it's again it's been a while. We saw from the way Navarro is. So so Boba Fett and her have been, around for a while.
The only other random thing that I wanted to throw out there was I want to know how Boba Fett was tracking Din. Because the Empire obviously was using the tracking beacon, unless Boba Fett managed or figured out that he could, I don't know, hijack the signal. But I want to know how he was tracking the Razor Crest.
Was he just tracking his armor?
I don't know. Can you do that?
Somehow.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Or maybe his armor has like a transponder code or something.
It's
that
like
he knows.
Find My iPhone,
right? That's exactly what it is.
Basically, yeah.
Find My Best Car.
That's got to be an app. Someone's gonna make it.
The only thing I saw that was interesting. I mean, again, like you said, Mike, like I want to know who the Jedi is. But I did see somewhere where someone took a screen grab from the Fallen Order video game, and the force beam that Grogu was surrounded by when he was communicating to wherever he was communicating looked very similar to something in the Fallen Order video game. So it was another maybe hint towards Cal Kestis. But yeah, I just thought I would throw that in there. Or if maybe, I don't know, do you guys have any? I know we talked about predictions last week, but has anything changed after this episode? Or
I still just hope it's Ezra. I don't know if that's really going to pan out, but that's my hope.
I think that would be awesome. I just wonder if, like we would know who he is, but nobody else, like I don't know that they have anything to orient them, to him. Right. That would be the only issue, but
I mean, there's all sorts of people that are suggesting that Sebastian Stan do a young Luke Skywalker.
That
right.
I'm on board with that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, that fan casting. I mean, it worked for Rosario Dawson. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much how she got casted.
I still don't think they're going to bring a Skywalker into this, but
yeah, me neither.
But we'll see. Okay, before we finally wrap up, we do have an awesome potential gift for our listeners. I have an extra The Art of Star Wars The Mandalorian. So it's the official art of The Mandalorian Season 1. And so I happened to get an extra copy of this. And so we are going to raffle it off to our listeners. So the way that you can enter into this raffle, and this will go through probably roughly mid-January. So you've got a number of weeks to jump on this. But what I would like you guys to do, if you would like to enter into this raffle, is email us, and you can use the email specifically starwarsbook@sqpn.com. That's a unique email that we've set up for this. So again, it's Star Wars Book. Book is singular, and then so starwarsbook@sqpn.com, and include your name in the email and the phrase "This is the way," and we will gather up all the entries, and then, like I said, probably sometime, Epiphany, Baptism of the Lord time frame, we will randomly select one of you who have entered into that, and then I will be sending you out The Art of Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 1. So definitely send us an email if you'd like to be entered into that raffle. So an awesome thing that we can do for one of you guys out there this Christmas season. So that is it from us for this episode. And of course, listeners, we always want to hear what you guys thought, especially about this particular episode of The Mandalorian. So email us, comment on our Facebook, tweet us, let us know what you thought of this episode. And you can email us your comments on this episode by emailing us at starwars@sqpn.com. And you can go find our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter @SQPN. And we would like to take a moment now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including this week, Katrina M., Cheryl P., Sherlyn P., I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name there, Christopher A., Ed K., and Marie M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, please be sure to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, your favorite podcast player, so you don't miss an episode when we release them. You can also find us on YouTube at the SQPN YouTube channel, and just be sure to click the bell to get notifications. And also, please be sure to share these episodes on social media and help us to spread our audience, and share it with those whom you know would enjoy listening to us talk about all things Star Wars. You can find any and all previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we will be back next week when we will be talking about the penultimate episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. So until then, Andrew Hermes, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And Mike Creevy, thanks for joining us this evening.
Can't wait till next week.
And Thomas Sanjuro, thanks for joining us.
It was awesome to be here.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.